Hello there, I'm a nerd named Ryan. Valentine is a pretty underrated slasher movie from the early 2000s, so let's talk about it. Also, look at this like old school DVD case. Look at that, we got the snapper case. Yeah, you'd love to see it. Some people don't like these snapper cases. I like them. Wow, this DVD is really beat up. I think I bought this from like a charity shop like years ago for like 50p. So yeah, not in the best shape, but the movie's pretty good. Why am I still talking about the DVD case? What the fuck is wrong with me? Anyway, okay, so Valentine is a movie from 2001. It's directed by Jamie Blanks, who's probably best well known for directing Urban Legend, which I think is a pretty underrated slasher movie. I think this one's pretty underrated as well, though I don't think Valentine is anywhere near as good as Urban Legend. This movie stars David Boreanaz and Denise Richards, along with Mary Shelton and Katherine Heigl. And it's a pretty basic kind of revenge story. Basically, these five girls ruin a kid's life at a Valentine's Day party at school, and then years later, when they're all adults, they start all getting picked off one by one by a mysterious killer who wears a Cupid mask. So, pretty bog standard setup for a slasher movie. You know, bunch of people all getting picked off one by one by some masked killer, with the revenge element as well. Pretty standard for a slasher movie. And this is, to be honest, a pretty standard slasher movie. Like, you're not going to hear me say that this is, you know, some masterpiece of the slasher genre. There are some issues with it, but I do think it's ultimately underrated. I'm not going to pretend there aren't any problems with Valentine, because there are. It is a fairly generic slasher movie. Like, if you're familiar with the slasher genre like I am, you're not going to see anything like super new here in terms of, you know, the story beats and the characterization, stuff like that. A lot of the characters as well are kind of a bit boring and a bit generic, which is a real problem for this movie, because it tries to introduce kind of like a romantic element and a drama element and a mystery element as well, where we're kind of in between these, you know, in between the kind of horror movie, you know, sequences with the killer. You get these big long bits of the girls and their kind of failed dating lives and examinations of their friendship and, you know, kind of bits like that. And also the mystery element, you know, introducing a series of red herrings, which is all fine, and that's really good. I like that they did that. I appreciate the fact that they went to that trouble. The problem is that they didn't make any of the characters all that interesting, with the exception of Kate and Paige. Those are like the two who I think you can sort of root for a little bit. Kate's a pretty kind of generic final girl, all things considered, but she's, you know, at least she is like one of the few characters who you're like, she's nice. I hope she doesn't get killed horribly. And then you've got Paige, who is kind of interesting. You know, she's kind of, I think, the most kind of fun character. She's the most fun to watch character. She's played by Denise Richards, Denise Richards and David Boreanaz, they really kind of carry this movie. David Boreanaz, by the way, I love the fact that he's kind of right here on the DVD cover and his name is first in the credits, because he is not in this film all that much. He's only in like a few scenes. But, you know, this movie came out in 2001. Buffy and Angel, they would have been kind of big around that time. So, yeah, he would have been... So, you know, David Boreanaz and Denise Richards would be the two people with the most kind of star power at this time. So it's no surprise to me that they're put on the front of the DVD there. Like I say, Paige is probably the most, like, fun character to watch. Like, I like her scenes. She's quite funny. Denise Richards brings a lot of personality to that role. And Kate is she's perfectly fine as kind of the nice girl character. There's not really that much about her, and the rest of the characters, there's not really much much interesting about them. So yeah, the characters kind of do let the film down in its slower moments, I think, because there's not really that much interesting stuff going on with them. That being said, there is still a lot of fun stuff happening in Valentine. I really like the killer. I like the Cupid mask. I think that's a really nice touch. One thing I actually do kind of like with the characters is they set up a bunch of, like, red herrings, and I love that they basically, all these guys they set up who could be potential, you know, who are red herrings and could, like, potentially be the killer, they're all, like, just either massive douchebags or kind of, like, dicks. Like, we get this right from the start. Like, right at the start, one of the characters, Shelley, played by Katherine Heigl, she's on a date with a guy called Jason, who is just the most pretentious, just the worst. He's just the most pretentious arse you've ever met. Like, he refers to himself in the third person as Jason. That's a pretty fun sequence. There's a few, like, sequences in this that are quite funny, that I quite like. I like the humour in this. There's a bit where two of the characters go speed dating, and just all the guys they meet on this speed dating thing are just the worst guys, just the worst dudes they could have found. I kind of like that. There's a few moments like that that are quite funny. But yeah, we see Jason again later in the film as kind of like a red herring. And I like that they have a few characters like that who are just like these guys who are just, you know, kind of dickheads, and who are supposed to be these kind of red herrings, to, you know, for the mystery element. I like that. I like that they set up all these characters and they're all the most like just unlikable or pretentious assholes. It's kind of great. Another thing I'll say about this movie is that Denise Richards and David Boreanaz, they absolutely carry this movie. I mean, David Boreanaz is the best actor in this by far. Like every scene he's in, he just steals the show, and he's not even doing anything that exciting. He's just a really kind of naturally good actor and naturally charismatic and charming. So yeah, I like seeing him in this movie. He's really good in this. Denise Richards, you know, again, she's given the character I think is at least fun, and you know, is given some fun moments and some interesting stuff to do. So those two kind of stand out as the two best characters. Partly because they're the only ones who are really given anything to do, but also because I think Denise Richards and David Boreanaz are giving the two best performances in the film. The saving grace of this movie, though, for me, is Jamie Blanks, the director, who really knows how to do horror. He really kind of understands horror and how to frame and shoot a horror sequence. It's really, really good. There are some really interesting sequences with the killer here. Like right at the start, you got Shelley in the morgue. She's a med student, and you know, she's kind of stalked through the morgue with all the, you know, the body bags with the corpses in, and you got the killer walking around just stabbing all the corpses. It's really cool, and it's really kind of creepy the way they've set it up. It's a creepy setting, and it's shot really well. That's amazing. I like that sequence. There's one sequence where they're at an art exhibition held by just the most kind of pretentious douchebag artist stereotype, who I just love. I really like that character. They're at his art exhibition, and it's all kind of like video screens. It's like a maze that's set up with all these video screens that show, like, you know, close-ups of eyes and mouths and stuff. And there's a really cool sequence where one of the characters is sort of stalked through that and then killed by an arrow, because, you know, you've got a killer wearing a Cupid mask. You've got to have death by arrow at some point, I suppose. That's a really good sequence. There's also the hot tub sequence, which I think a lot of people kind of agree is the best sequence in the movie. It's certainly the most popular and most well-known kill from this movie. Overkill is an understatement for that particular scene. You know, it goes hard. They are just going for it with that one sequence. So that's really fun as well. So I think ultimately the thing with Valentine for me is it's a really fun movie. It's got some funny moments, and some interesting death sequences. The actual killer is really cool. I love the design of the mask. I think that's really awesome. But it is a fairly generic story. Like, there's a twist at the end, and you're going to know what the twist is. I feel like most people can probably guess what the twist is, even if they've never seen the movie before. I won't tell you what it is just in case, but yeah, it's a pretty easy to spot twist. The story itself doesn't really do anything like new, but there's enough kind of fun stuff in there to really make this a bit of an underrated slasher movie. So yeah, if you want a pretty underrated holiday-themed slasher movie, Valentine is pretty good. Valentine's a pretty decent one. You know, it's right from that kind of sweet spot where it's like early 2000s, so it's got some of the kind of 90s tropes and some of the 2000s horror movie tropes, and I think it's just the right blend. So yeah, despite its flaws, despite its generic story and its mostly uninteresting characters, I do really like Valentine. I think it's it's like a guilty pleasure movie for me. So anyway, why not let me know what you think of this movie down in the comment section below. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I'll see you when I see you.